Salt-laden winds howled around Seacliff Manor, the lonely bastion of granite and glass perched on Maine's rugged coastline. Its vast windows gazed out upon the churning gray Atlantic like unmoving, unblinking eyes. This was Julian Vance's domain man, whose quiet brilliance had forged a vast tech empire, yet whose heart remained tethered to exactly one person, his 8-year-old daughter, Serafina. Before we dive into this story, tell us where you're watching from. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Julian was a man molded by unbreakable will. With Serafina, he was warm and tender. In boardrooms, a single glance from him could still the room. Among the old money families of the town, his sharp suits and sharper mind marked him an outsider they couldn't ignore, and the rumor mill followed him like coastal fog, not bad, for new money. He heard every whisper, the echoes of doors once slammed in his face, and simply built his walls higher. One day, while walking through the struggling fishing village below his estate, he met Silas Crawley. The man wore a threadbare jacket. His hands were calloused from patching nets. His eyes burned with a hunger Julian recognized from his own past. Silas spoke of hard luck and empty dinners. Remembering his own early hardships, Julian offered him a lifeline, a job as groundskeeper and driver. Silas's wife, Agnes, was soon hired as housekeeper. Their son Gideon Serafina's peer moved into the staff quarters. It was an act of compassion, an open door, but Julian never dreamed of the darkness it would unleash. At first, the manor felt more alive. Agnes's praises were as sweet as honey, her smile a soothing balm. Silas stood rigid in his crisp uniform, gratitude etched on his face. Yet Ilara, the venerable cook who had served Julian since childhood, saw through the charm. She noticed Agnes's lingering gaze on the late Mrs. Vance's jewelry box, Silas's appraisal of the priceless art lining the walls. Small cruelties rose like a slow tide, almost imperceptible. At breakfast, Gideon received a glistening stack of syrup-drenched pancakes. Serafina was given dry toast. "Oh, what a shame," Agnes would sigh, faux sympathy dripping from her voice. "We ran out of batter. Gideon's a growing boy, you know." Serafina, polite to a fault, would only nod, secretly gnawed by hunger. The poison spread. On the drive to Serafina's private school, Silas would catch her in the rearview mirror. "You know, little miss," he'd say, voice deceptively casual, "it'd be simpler if everyone believed Gideon was the heir. Less confusion, right?" When she whispered, "But I'm Mr. Vance's daughter," he chuckled low and chilling. "Sure you are, kid. Sure you are." At school, the whispers turned to taunts, the charity case they called her, while Gideon was hailed as Seacliff Manor's true scion. Her friends drifted away, leaving her marooned amid cold shoulders and mocking grins. At home, her toys vanished only to reappear in Gideon's hands. "Sharing is caring, Serafina," Agnes would coo, as Gideon smirked behind her. When Julian rang from his worldwide meetings, Agnes's carefully concerned voice greeted him. Serafina's. Having a hard time, Mr. Vance. I think she misses her mother terribly. Her words were a knife twisted into Julian's oldest wound. He heard the feigned distress, mistook it for genuine concern, and doubt bloomed in his heart. Only Alara understood the truth. The flour-dusted cook, with gentle, sad eyes, would sneak Serafina a cup of warm milk and a biscuit late at night. She hummed old lullabies as she tended the small, unexplained bruises on the girl's arms. Her silence a shield against the Crawleys' watchful gaze. Serafina learned to inhabit the shadows. Her sole comfort was a worn photograph of her mother and a nightly whispered prayer, "Please, Daddy, come home. Please see me." The evening before Julian's month-long trip to Asia felt heavy with things left unsaid. He found Serafina curled in the velvet armchair, clutching her mother's photograph. "Daddy," she whispered, a fragile thread of sound. He knelt before her, the lines of exhaustion deep around his eyes. "You'll be brave for me, won't you, Starlight?" he asked. Her lower lip trembled. "I want to go with you, he murmured, stroking her hair. "It's just dull meetings in stuffy rooms. You'd be miserable. Agnes and Silas will care for you, and Alara will be here. You won't be alone." He squeezed her hand, offering a final, reassuring smile. Just 1 month. To a child living in fear, a month can feel like a lifetime. No sooner had Julian's car disappeared down the winding drive than the mask fell away. The manor became Serafina's prison. Agnes's voice, once syrupy, turned to steel. "Floors don't polish themselves, Serafina. If you want to stay here, you work." Her small hands used to paintbrushes and piano keys were raw from scrubbing marble, while Gideon lounged on the sofa, devouring her dessert. The other staff, cowed by Silas's newfound authority, kept their heads down. The psychological torment was unrelenting. They hid her books, shattered her cherished snow globe, whispered that her father was disappointed, might not even return for such a troublesome child. Hope soured into despair. The breaking point came on a bitter night. As punishment for talking back, Agnes locked Serafina in her room without dinner. Huddled under a thin blanket, shivering, Serafina heard their triumphant laughter downstairs, an echo of her defeat. In the cavernous kitchen, Ilara's heart pounded. She knew the Crawleys monitored every call, but she also knew of one line they'd forgotten, an old phone in the dusty wine cellar. Hands trembling, she crept down the stone steps. The air smelled of earth and aged wine. She wiped the dust from the rotary dial, and voice shaking dialed the private number she had memorized years ago, Julian's direct line. An agonizing pause, then footsteps above Agnes. Ilara held her breath. "Hello," came Julian's weary voice. "Daddy, it's Ilara," she whispered, tears in her voice. "You must come home, now." Silence. Then his tone shifted, exhaustion giving way to steely resolve. She poured out every detail, the lies, the hunger, the cruelty, the horror in Serafina's eyes. He listened, silent, weightier than any fury. When she finished, his voice was low but absolute. "I'm on my way. Don't let her out of your sight." Hope flared in the cellar's darkness. A blizzard swept the coast, burying the world in pristine white. Yet the chill inside Seacliff was far more brutal. The next morning, Agnes's final act of cruelty, she hauled shivering Serafina onto the snow-blanketed veranda in flimsy pajamas. "A bit of fresh air will do you good," she sneered, frost sparkling on her breath. Silas stood cross-armed in the doorway, a smug grin curling his lips. "Maybe this will teach you respect," Agnes whispered. "And what a pity it can't bleach your skin." She latched the heavy oak door. Suddenly, a black town car roared through the winter hush, skidding to a halt. Julian Vance stepped out. He was no longer the weary man who'd left. The coat was the same, but the detachment had vanished, replaced by an Arctic blaze. His storm-lit eyes seized upon the scene, his daughter small and trembling, her mother's photo lost in the snow. With 3 long strides he crossed the yard. In one motion, he swept Serafina into his arms, her cold, fragile body a testament to his failure. "Elara," he growled. The old cook raced forward, wrapping the girl in a thick blanket. "Warm bath now," she urged. Cradling Serafina, Julian turned to face Silas and Agnes. Each step he took in the fresh snow sounded like a drumbeat of judgment. His voice was calm but unassailable. "You have 1 hour. Pack your things and be off my property. If I see your faces again, it will be in a courtroom where I will dismantle every miserable part of your lives." They fled in terror, their footprints the only trace left behind. In the days that followed, Seacliff Manor slowly revived. Silence no longer weighed heavily with fear, but settled gently in peace. News of the Crawleys' arrest for fraud and child endangerment made a brief, satisfying headline. Yet true healing flourished inside the granite walls in quiet moments by the fire, as Julian read to Serafina, on walks along the shore collecting shells, in the gradual return of her laughter echoing through long corridors. The scars remained, but they became reminders not of pain, but of the strength it took to endure. One afternoon, as the sun pierced the coastal mist in golden beams, Serafina looked up at her father. "You came back," she whispered. Julian wrapped his arm around her, drawing her close. "Always, Starlight," he vowed, voice thick with emotion. "I will always come back for you." In that promise, Seacliff Manor was reborn not as a fortress to keep the world at bay, but as a sanctuary fiercely protected, where truth would never again be silenced. Please share meaningful stories with us by clicking the like and subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start a new day with profound lessons and sincere empathy.